Shermichael, do you think there's any way that any Republican at this point can take Trump off the victory path for the nomination?
Nope, unless unless Trump passed away, and I'm not saying that because I wish that upon him. I'm saying, in my opinion, that's the only way I can foresee anybody having an opportunity to usurp his lead. I just don't think it's possible. I mean, even if you were to take everyone out and they consolidated around one particular candidate, that person would still be behind around 15 to 20 percentage points within the margin of error. So I just don't see a mathematical path, which is why I began to raise the idea of some of these candidates, most of them dropping out of the race before the year is over. I think Republicans need to consolidate around the person who is likely to be the nominee. And with my personal issues about Trump, if it's Trump, it's like, hey, do you guys want to win or you want to lose? And in my opinion, it makes more sense strategically to consolidate around an individual now and work on messaging now and work on targeting and engagement now versus waiting until 2024 by June or well, maybe by April, because I think that's when all of the primary caucus process is completely done. So I think that there are just some strategic things here that Republicans, the GOP, the RNC needs to really start to consider. We have a second debate coming up, Carrie, Dave. I think by debate three, the RNC chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel, needs to sit with some of these candidates and say, look, you need to get out. You just do not have a path, and the party needs to start consolidating around the person who does.
Yeah, and
it's
I
really
think that,
interesting.
no, I was just going to say that if they feel there's someone else who can take Trump on, then they need to rally around that person now. And also what you're seeing, which I think, again, if I were a Republican strategist, I would advise Nikki Haley's pushing this more, but you're not voting for Joe, you're voting for Kamala. Because Joe's not going to make it. He's going to become incapacitated. He's going to die. And the 25th Amendment, the key person for the 25th Amendment is the vice president, right? Mike Pence wouldn't go along. That's why they couldn't get rid of Trump after January 6th. But Kamala Harris would be happy to go along because she'll be the beneficiary. So I think that that's a viable strategy. And I think that the Democrats have to be really, really careful, because it'd be one thing if Biden had a 55% approval rating and people thought the country was on the right track and they gave him credit for the economy, but he has a terrible approval rating. 2/3 of the country thinks we're on the wrong track. The economy, he gets even worse numbers. And this is a classic political mistake that parties make. They try to argue cerebrally to address a visceral issue. The reason people don't give Joe Biden credit for the economy is because it's personal. The inflation hits people in the gut. Things they buy every day, like gas and food, and purchasing power has gone down overall. That's the bottom line. That's the main reason why people are feeling it. And no happy talk that the administration can do can wish that away. It just becomes patronizing.
That's a really good point. All politics is personal and it is all local. And I agree with Shermichael that the GOP, if they want to get ahead of this, they really got to focus on those swing states that Dave mentioned, like very specific, even granular level to the county level.
So they have to, Carrie. They have to. Like I hate to interrupt, but just real quickly here. I've worked on 3 presidential campaigns: Newt Gingrich, Mitt Romney, Dr. Carson, and when Dr. Carson endorsed Trump, then I was a part of that, particularly on the communication strategic side of things. And I can assure you that for President or former President Trump, when you look at the 2016 victory compared to 2020, and you look at the numbers by which Joe Biden beat Trump, it was on the margins, similarly to how Trump beat Clinton in 2016. Then when you go down to the county level to become even more granular, then you start seeing, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 votes in one county. It's crazy how close this actually is when you really dive deep into the numbers. And so from my perspective as a strategist, I'm going to all of those states that Trump won that he then lost, and I'm going to every single county, and I'm trying to figure out who are the voters we lost, how many unregistered voters are there that lean Republican that we could turn out, how many are registered but just don't vote frequently for whatever reason, and I am putting a ton of my money, a ton of my people, in continuous engagement with those people to turn them out, because that's how he's going to win this thing. It'll be on the margins again, but that could lead to another victory. I just had to throw that in there.
No, I agree. Well, and very.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, when you say turning out, Shermichael, I think GOP is asleep at the wheel. Turning out now does not just mean election day; it means election month or weeks, because conservatives are behind the times when it comes to what's happening with mail-in balloting and people wanting to vote absentee and early voting. They're, rather than railing about it, they got to just wake up and realize this is the new reality.
No, they better get to it, Carrie. They better get to it fast.
Well, and let's face it. I don't think anyone is undecided on Donald Trump. I think people either love him or they hate him. So if I were giving GOP strategic advice, which no one's asking me for, I would say focus on getting new voters, because you're wasting your time to try to get people that voted against him last time to vote for him this time. You'll have a much better success rate getting people that haven't voted out to vote. And so it's going to be a turnout thing. And that's what worries me. I think Biden's greatest problem, frankly, is voter apathy, is there's just going to be a much lower turnout. And the other thing is we have to be careful on these elections, because it's a referendum on whom, right? They're the ones that are going to lose. So in 2016, it actually ended up being more of a referendum on Hillary. So that helped Trump. In 2020, obviously, I think Trump still could have won despite COVID, but it was his erratic behavior that did him in. So it was a referendum on him. What could happen on the Dems is, in the end, this ends up being a referendum on Biden, which is usually the way it is for an incumbent, right? And people forget that because Trump is such an outsized personality. But if that happens, then the Biden campaign is really in trouble.
Well, I personally would rather have elections be referendums about policy rather than personalities, but that's the good old days. I guess I'm too naive to believe that's possible. But Shermichael, I know you got to catch a flight, and congratulations on your new home. Dave and I will wait in the mail for our invitation for the dinner party. But thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, no, this was fun, guys. And to your audience, please forgive me for not being on camera. I was supposed to be on camera. That was my intent. I ended up having to move a flight, and so I'm all over the place right now, just completely screwed up my schedule. So I just want to say that. But I want to come back, guys, because I think in the upcoming months, we're going to see a lot of changes in this race. I also think, Dave and Carrie, in terms of President Biden's age, once he begins to start campaigning more, how is he perceived? When he's giving speeches, is he sometimes forgetting certain things? And I'm not saying this to make fun of the president. People age differently, and we all have to acknowledge that and recognize that. I had a great-grandmother who recently passed away at almost 100, and when she got close to 100, we started to see some changes with her mentally, and it was just a reality that we as a family had to deal with. So millions of Americans recognize this, but they're going to ask themselves, but do I want that in the commander-in-chief, even if it's not a continuous thing or a constant thing? If I'm wondering it, I don't know if I have comfort, if I'm comfortable enough supporting this person. So those things will matter. I also think, Dave and Carrie, how the GOP, how effective they are in painting a vote for Biden as a vote for Kamala Harris will also be very, very key in that turnout you just mentioned, Dave, and enthusiasm for Democrats, because a lot of Democrats are not excited about the vice president. They're not very fond of her. And so all of those things also, I think, will play a big part. And so you guys have to have me back to sort of break those things down as well.
No, we absolutely will. And I think you make a very good point, Shermichael, because I do believe if everything goes as planned, in other words, there aren't any major unexpected things, I think Biden should win. And I think the economy will continue to get a little better. I think he'll get maybe not enough, but more credit. But remember, it just takes one bad fall, one major health incident, right? And all that is out the window. So at the best case scenario for Dems, it's highly, highly risky. And I think a 5% chance of Donald Trump becoming president again is too great a risk for this country, because our democracy is not going to be the same. And he said so. I mean, give the guy credit. He says what he's going to do. There's no ambiguity. So I think the Dems are walking blind without a cane. But in any way, it's been so great to have you on, and we'll definitely continue these conversations. And thanks to all of you for joining us once again on Practically Political. It's always great to have you. I'm Dave Spencer.
And I'm Carrie Sheffield. We'll look forward to seeing you next time.